historical records say it was just a piece of land which was selected for royal burial places. It was never a garden, just a piece of land. The land was chosen because of two reasons. It can be two reasons. One, because it was close to a Sufi shrine, very close to this place, which is Nizamuddin Aulia's Dargah. B, it was selected because of the location, because of the beauty it has. There used to be a small tributary flowing through the place, and because of the trees and plants, probably these two were the main reasons why we see scattered, many graves scattered in the complex. Alright, so it was known, this place was called Baghe-Jut, meaning royal burial place. Alright, we have Muslim rule in India starting from 12th century till 16th century. After Muslims were defeated, we have British rule in India. Right? What they did was they wanted to re-landscape whole of Delhi. So they chose this place for a garden, and then the name given to this place changed from Lodi Gardens to Lady Willington Park. Yeah, and after our independence, that is 1947, the name again was given back. The original name, that is Lodi Gardens, because most of the structures in this complex are of Lodi people, right? So, right from a royal burial place to a garden, now we are in the middle of the garden. We have pathways here, we have more and more trees and plants coming up. Other than the structures, we also have, you must have, I don't know, it's hidden by trees. We have a bonsai park next to the garden. We'll be going and seeing a butterfly conservatory. And you look around, you will see many indigenous and imported trees. Like you have trees like these, they are bottle palms imported right from Cuba. Okay, this beautification was as a part of British part of beautification of the place. It wasn't there earlier. The British imported many more local trees and imported trees. Yeah? So this pathways and the garden you see is relatively new as compared to the structures. Right? So we'll begin our walk from our first structure, which is right at the end of the road. Then we'll move on to the other structures. Right? Just a little bit about the outer facade of the structure. Alright, this is, if you look at the structure chronologically, this is not the oldest structure in the gardens. We'll be actually seeing the oldest right at the end. So this is one of the earliest structures to be built in the complex. The reason I emphasize a lot on this structure, is because it belongs to a dynasty which is very lesser known, and we hardly have any structure which belongs to this dynasty. We hardly got 2 or 3, that too in ruins. So this is one of the best example to see the architecture of this particular dynasty. Okay. This is a tomb. Tomb is generally a structure, is an Islamic structure, we won't be able to see tombs of Hindus or Hindu rulers. The tombs are generally Islamic in nature. This tomb belongs to a ruler called Muhammad Shah Sayyid. He is the third ruler of this lesser known dynasty which ruled Delhi, that is Sayyid dynasty. Right? This was built during 14th century. Alright, it was a tradition to build the tomb of your father. So every son's got a responsibility to build his father's tomb. It's generally built when the ruler is alive. Okay? So this was built by Muhammad Shah Sayyid's son during 14th century. This guy was the third ruler of this dynasty. Okay, if you look at the structure, It stands right above the ground level. It stands right on the an artificial mound sort of a thing. That is to give a very supreme, a strong look to the garden, because to the tomb, because it belongs to a ruler. It doesn't belong to a commoner. So every possible way they've given the grand look, the supreme, the huge look to the structure. The main material used to construct the structure is grey quartzite stone, which was locally mined in Delhi, which was locally available in Delhi. They didn't import it from any other place. It was locally available in Delhi. The reason we see the structure not very intricately carved and designed, the reason is because of the hardness of the stone. The stone is very hard to carve and to design. That's why early Islamic era, right in 13th and 14th century, we see structures which are very less, which is minimally carved, which are very less carved as compared to the later structures, that is, Taj Mahal. If you take an example of Taj Mahal, Red Fort, they're all very beautifully carved and designed, whereas the earlier structures like these are very less carved and designed. The reason is because quartzite was a very hard stone to carve and design. Alright. This particular structure is an octagonal structure with 8 sides. Right? Before I talk about the interiors, just focus on the roof of the structure. That particular circular roof is called a dome. Dome is again very Islamic in nature. It was imported by, it was copied from Roman architecture in 13th century and was brought into India by these Islamic rulers who came from Central Asia. Alright? So it was again, Indian builders were not used to this particular Islamic architectural element. If you notice, that dome is crowned by lotus petals. Yeah, and lotus is again not an Islamic flower. It is more sacred for Hindus. So that is the element which was copied from Hindu architecture. These rulers, even though they came in with new architecture, new style, new religion, new language, everything was new to them, this place was new to them, but they never ditched the Indian architecture completely. They copied many fascinating features from Indian architecture as well. So that is one. Lotus petal is one of the architecture which was copied from Hindu or let's say Indian architecture. Right? Okay. If you notice, the main dome is surrounded by the replicas of the main dome. If you notice, there are small replicas. That is called, in Hindi it's called chhatris. In English you call it a royal umbrella. Okay, so yes, so the whole idea is the main dome is the sun, and which is surrounded by other planets. So these Islamic rulers, they believed a lot in astronomy and cosmic symbols and a lot of universal and celestial bodies. That whole idea was there. It was also copied while constructing buildings as well. So the whole idea is to show that the ruler was the sun, the main one, and the replicas are his subordinates or his followers. So that is the idea. And again, if you come down a little bit, you will see the slanting thing which is projecting out. That is called a chhajja. Alright, a chhajja is again a Hindu architectural element. It is used for Hindu palaces. If you go down to Rajasthan and places like that, you will see this. This is a common feature for Hindu buildings. Okay. Before we enter the main central room, you have to enter through this pillared veranda, if you notice. So the structure is surrounded by a pillared veranda, and structure stands, it's already standing on a mount, but if you look at it, it's again standing on a drum. Again, to give it an elevated look. And this particular thing, I want to believe it was copied by the later rulers as well. If you go to Humayun's tomb and Taj Mahal, you will see the structures are standing on a drum. It used to give strength to the structure. If it's above the ground level, it gives strength because the drum has pillars inside. So the drum is covered with pillars, which is giving strength to the structure. Alright. So that is about the outer facade. I'll just explain. And one more thing, even though we are looking at Islamic structures, but these Islamic structures also have Hindu elements. So that's why historians have given these particular architecture a name, that is marriage of two architectures, that is Indo-Islamic architecture. The term given to this particular architecture is Indo-Islamic architecture, and historians call it marriage of two styles, Indian and Islamic styles.